guys and gals and non-binary pals. I have got an absolute humdinger of an interview now. One of my favourite people in the world, not just from the Doctor Who world, but from the world full stop. It's my enormous pleasure to welcome to Time Space Visualiser the wonderful and the very, very inimitable Katy Manning. Katy, hello, how are you?
Hello, darling, my lovely friend. How are you? It's so nice. Well, I wish I could see your face, but I've got one lens in and you are strapped to a chair with sticky tape. This could be an interesting interview. And if you fall on the floor, I'll have to go down there with you to the floor. So, just letting you know that that's how it's going to be right now.
Darling, it will be as it will be. We'll run through it. How are you keeping in these very odd times?
Well, I was doing really, really well. I mean, I've just been flat out busy, and you know me, midnight comes and I'll poster a chair or I'll make a card or a lampshade. I'm one of those women that always has plenty to do, but then I've been very, very poorly and I had to take to my bed.
Yes.
Now that's unusual, but then, I'm like a little cockroach, sweetheart. I'm basically indestructible. So it won't be long before I'm scuttling around with my little feelers going.
Well, the friendliest, loveliest cockroach I know. But listen, I'm going to, you and I, at the best of times, we can chat for England or for the universe, depending on what we're discussing. So I'm going to.
Oh yeah, when we go for our little jaunts, we do, don't we, darling?
We do tend to. So I'm going to keep it simple from my end today, because what the people are here to hear is you and you talking about Doctor Who and also the world at large. I've scribbled down some keywords. I'm going to fire a word at you. And just see what comes. If you need help along, hey, that's what I'm here for. But you know what? People want to hear from you and they want to hear how you're doing. The first word I scribbled down comes from the very beginning of your time on Doctor Who. The word is autons.
Ooh, autons. Actually, I thought that was Terror of the Autons.
Absolutely.
You see her going, oh, what was it called? What was it called? Of course it was. You gave me the word, didn't you? Thank you, darling. I thought that was, if I was a little kiddie watching that, I would have found that absolutely petrifying. You had trolls. I mean, there's even a movie out now with trolls. I mean, they've got pink hair and they're a little cuter. And, clonking along with these great big vampire teeth. And then you've got policemen that suddenly rip off their faces. I mean, you've got door-to-door salesmen. You've got clowns. You've got all of that. I mean, it was my favourite bit.
Yes.
Was the very trendy, as they were then, blow-up chair. Don't ask why. But they were
It
trendy.
was the 70s. It was the 70s.
Just. and it ate Harry Towel.
Yes. Yes.
That's a terrible way to go, isn't it? And what happened? Well, I was eaten by a large chair. It was. But it was also the beginning of so many different things. It had, of course, it was the beginning of the Master, and it was the beginning of, I think I'm right, always correct me, darling, because, I do get a little confused sometimes. And it was the beginning of Real Army and Real Navy, ultimately. And because the Brigadier suddenly had a proper uniform instead of that sort of, safari outfit with a paper badge. Am I right?
Yes. Yeah, absolutely.
Or should I get back to bed now? And it was also the introduction of Mike Yates.
Yes.
And it was me.
It was
my first.
It most certainly was. What was it like joining that family of a very well-established program that had been running, by this point for sort of 8-9 years? I mean, it's quite something.
Well, yes, but I think it's very different now because, you see, the way we perceive it now is because it's had this, massive ongoing success. But when we joined it then, it was a wonderful television show. I had seen some of Pat Troughton, and I had seen quite a bit of William Hartnell, but it wasn't in the same way as you would be going into it now. I mean, yes, there was a lot of publicity but nothing like it is now. I was just very excited. It was a wonderful job. And I'd just been doing another wonderful job. And I thought, oh gosh, 2 jobs in a row. This is looking good. I might, I might actually survive as an actress. But it was also, Barry Letts realized that he had something here, that he wanted to not lose the fact that it should be a family program. And it always has been, and it still is. Now we can see the generations of fans. You've got the babies. Just fantastic, right down to the grandparents. And it does put families together, which I think is absolutely lovely. And it's never changed on that level. But Barry Letts wanted to introduce a slightly older audience as well. And he also wanted to work very hard with special effects. So I think they gave him an extra 2 and 6pence and said, well, God bless you, Governor, off you go.
He wasn't afraid to use it as a testing ground for those effects, was he? Did you find your filming held up all the time by these kinds of new technologies that you were using?
No, we couldn't have filming held up back then. We couldn't have anything held up back then, a lot of the work was being done outside of where we were actually. It did, when you had certain new things. We were experimenting with CSO, which is colour separation overlay, which is what I think you youngsters call blue screen. Was it green screen? I'm not sure, but
thank you for calling me a youngster. That's the main thing. I definitely call it colour separation overlay, but that's Doctor Who's fault.
And so that was very exciting, and he wanted to start making a lot of the stories about, so that you've got them on 2 levels, so that really, if you take Terror of the Autons, you've got a plastic situation which was creeping into, certainly in my then, so that there were not in your face, bang, here it is, but lovely little elements that you were going right through to the Green Death when we looked at pollution.
Yeah, of course.
So he and Terence, you can't separate those two. When I talk about Terence, I have to have Barry. The picture in my head is of the 2 of them.
The 2 of them.
It was like having more compliance around. Yeah, they were. But one thing that I don't think has ever changed with this show is the passion and the love of the show of the people behind it. Yes. Producers, directors, all of and of course the special effects guys, makeup, everybody, costume, was so excited to be working on something so different. And as an actress, it was extraordinary to be able to, I've been doing some heavy drama on television and things, but suddenly to be involved in something to do with science fiction and traveling in space, and with the most remarkable actor that anybody could have possibly given me as my doctor.
Yes.
And, because I'd listened to him as a child, you see, on the radio.
Of course. Well, big radio man, and known for his voices and for his comedy. So in many ways, being the Doctor was quite a departure.
Oh, absolutely. And for John, this was very, very important, because he hadn't actually done, for want of another word, serious drama. He'd done a lot of comedy, and he was a voice master. I only knew him from the radio. I didn't know him from anything else. And as a little Katy, I kind of didn't really know him apart from, I didn't really fully know what he looked like.
Yeah, of course.
Until he's really tall, so I didn't know what he looked like. Long time, darling, because I only came up to his navel to get my glasses on, to stand on a ladder to see what his face looked like. But also, to work with the caliber of actors that were actually being employed to do all the other characters, but also they were actors who all wanted so much to be in something as extraordinary as this, because working with CSO was amazing, except for me, of course, because you have to look at the little tiny monitor. We had massive great cameras there, little tiny monitors. Well, of course, I couldn't see the monitor, so I had to learn how to react in a very different way. You work with watching what's happening. So
of course.
I had to kind of, yeah. But so working with all these extraordinary actors, but also at the speed that we were working. I'd never worked at that. You know, I'd done live television, I'd done drama, which always had like 2 weeks rehearsal, blah, blah, blah. This was, you know, like a week's rehearsal, 2 episodes, bada bing, bada boom.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, a really fast turnover. I'm gonna move on to my next word. We got a lot out of that one word. I'm quite impressed. But the next one I think might touch on a few other areas of production with Doctor Who. That word is Axos.
Those crabby things,
Yeah.
I really, little bits of my body I didn't know I had as I walked down that corridor, and these sort of like they were like lobster claws, weren't they?
Yeah, lobster claws and a big eyeball and goodness knows what else.
Yes, and then of course, well, we had the lovely Bernard in lycra, which is, I think, a sight I shall take with me for the rest of my life. But those poor actors, I mean, you think now how they do things. They had half ping pong balls.
Yes.
In their, pressed against their eyes, you know, and things like that. I mean, actors said nobody would have complained, just get on with it, you know, but it was also very exciting, you know, to do these kind of things. And I remember, oh gosh, no, it's a bit naughty. I won't say that. But I remember that was in...
No, I mean, don't feel you can't share.
Well, yes, I'll be careful how I share. I don't want to... but I remember too, was that what Freak with? No, that wasn't Freak.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. Because Dungeness, down in Dungeness, and suddenly, you know, I mean...
There you go. Well, that's right. With that great big, what can we call it? It looked like a sort of, looked like my mouth. It looked like my mouth opened. John Pertwee and I standing in my mouth. But, you know, that was, they had to pour boiling water around my feet to get my feet out of the frozen ground. Because those boots I wore, they weren't stocky, solid boots, honey. Those were delicate little fine kid leather or suede or, you know, whatever they were. And fortunately, I wore blue stockings because, quite frankly, my legs were blue. And I was so cold. My teeth were chattering, and there was like, they said, we may have to cut some dialogue because Katy's teeth sound like she's wearing a false set. They were literally going like this. And John, you know, and it was during this time, you know, and all, how to have a wonderful doctor is when you're snuggled under his cloak. And you're both absolutely freezing, except he had long johns and wellies and, you know, thermal vests.
Of course, maybe he needed to try the mini skirt and the boots. I don't know. Maybe there would have been a change.
We didn't have a lot of time to do anything, you know. And with the freak weather conditions in Dungeness, I mean, what a fabulous line. I mean, they'll never, you know, it's one of those great lines, isn't it?
Oh, absolutely. And funnily enough, one of those things that really only Doctor Who can get away with, because, you know, there's an alien invasion, you know, it's not going to happen on EastEnders, is it? You know, suddenly,
you know, I was just thinking that
snowing, you know,
great weather conditions in the market.
Yes, yeah, localized at the Queen Vic, just out front. But it's wonderful. I'm gonna give you another word. I'm gonna go for a non-Doctor Who related word this time, and see what we make of this one. Serendipity.
Do you know that crossed my mind the other day because I was outside in the garden with my drill, as you do. And I'd found some old bits of wood, and I was, you know, making myself out of the old bits of wood. I made myself a window box, which I was quite proud of.
Good.
And as I say, and I upholstered a chair, and then I made a lampshade and which the kind of things I do anyway. And somebody said to me, you should be doing this like as a video because it's the sort of the isolation version of serendipity. And I said, oh, and I'll be swanning around in tie-dyed skirts and, you know, hand polishing the pebbles in the garden, darling.
Absolutely
and of course,
right.
wearing my epoxy resin earrings.
Amazing.
You know.
I've just had a thought. I mean, you know, I'm of an age, and it was you that did it. Many people might not even know what we're talking about. What in your life, what was serendipity? Do you want to explain to our lovely viewers at home, some of whom are quite young?
Serendipity. Well, first of all, the word serendipity means good luck by chance, which was from a little story, The Three Little Princes of Serendip. Anyway, I was doing a play at I want that cup of tea instead of this water.
Oh, sorry.
I'll do what I do with my granddaughter. No, when my granddaughter feeds me on the phone, darling, she cooks meals for me, and then I have to pretend to eat them at 7 o'clock in the morning. Anyway, if she gives me broccoli again, it's over. I'm not going to be anymore. Anyway, so I was doing a play at the Edinburgh Festival at the Traverse. And back then at the Edinburgh Festival, there was only like the Traverse and a couple of other theatres, and wasn't anything.
Not like it is now.
And my agent, unbeknownst to me, had double booked me to also do this. So during the day, I was teaching people how to sculpt out of stale hovises and frozen butter, how to work with epoxy resin, how to weave, and some. It's always interesting when you get experts. Now, I'm not being unpleasant, and please don't take me the wrong way. This is humour, I hope. But they all seem to have an ability to speak at this speed. Now, I've got to make this interesting. Right?
Yes, absolutely.
There's no script. And so I'm, just working the whole thing. And then they give you wind-up signals, which I couldn't see. And then I'd suddenly realize, oh, no, they're saying stretch it. So I'd suddenly go, well, thank you so much for joining us. But before we go, it was just, I loved it because I do weave. I make my own looms. I did all of those things, and I still do.
Yes. Oh, yes.
So it was a joy for me to do. But at night, I was playing a 16-year-old mass murderous girl guide called Rosie Macron.
Who wasn't? I mean, who wasn't at that age?
and it was because I'd have to put because I had to dress as a little girl guide with little white frilly knickers and white knee socks and big bunches and pink little freckles on my nose. And I had to put that outfit on the plane so that when I got to Edinburgh, I was ready to go straight on the stage. And Stuart Bevins come pick me up at the airport, and he said, had we been doing that these days, it would have had a very different look of me passionately kissing this little tiny mini girl guy suit and white frilly knickers.
Good Lord. Tie-dye by day and murderous brownie by night. I mean, it's pretty good.
I know. It's quite something, is it? And people say, have you been typecast? I don't think so. But I loved doing that programme. I really, really loved it. And I saw a tiny bit the other day, and it was so touching because my dog Caspian was with me on the beach, and I loved my Cassie so much.
Let's have another word. Let's have another word. Ogrons.
Oh, I loved Ogrons. Now, that was the one time I thought it was jolly beastly of the doctor to say that they had no brain, basically. Yes. And I think actually that makes them far more dangerous.
It's true. I mean, it's very true.
But they were wonderful. I thought, those masks, done by special effects. And the whole look, and it was before the Planet of the Apes.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But what was fantastic too about them, I really thought they were very, very strong creatures, monsters, aliens,
yes.
whatever.
Yeah, absolutely.
And of course, it was the Havoc boys had the best time because you had people like, Vinny and Joshua Powell and all that, because you had all the big boys,
Yeah.
And they had the best time. And we were filming, I'm never sure whether it was I'm not sure whether it was a festival hall or wherever it was, because, you know, not being able to see, once they took my glasses, I didn't know where we were. And that's why my details, when I talk about Doctor Who, are not quite, you know, as clear as a lot of people who would be saying, oh, here we are.
No, you're absolutely right, though. It was the Royal Festival Hall on the South Bank.
There you go. And as I say, John and everybody, people just hung on to me and put me in places, you know. And wherever they put me, I was. And anyway, we were there very early in the morning. And it was like about 5 o'clock, and it was just getting light, and it was very foggy. And there was quite a few chaps who liked to drink, or men drink. And I think I've even slept. No. And they were sleeping quite comfortably and, you know, well on this around the festival hall. Well, of course, John and all the boys said, shall we? I said, oh, we could give them a heart attack. So they crept. So the Oberon boys, I love those Havoc boys so much, and they crept up and they grunted. Well, you've never seen so many alcoholics jump up, swear they'd never touch another drop again. It worked better than Betty Ford, trust me. They were wonderful, and I thought a great addition. And I'm surprised they've never kind of come back as a lot of.
I agree. Given how many Dalek stories we've had, I think to bring back the Ogrons alongside, or even, you know, we've had a lot of Master stories as well in the new series. Why not? I'd love to see them back.
Bring back the Ogron. And the wonderful thing about Jo, you see, this says so much about Jo. She didn't sit there thinking, oh, aren't they awful? Well, she gave them a banana.
Yes, she did. She did. Absolutely right. Yes. Absolutely right. I think, but I think that's actually, in terms of character, that was a lovely touch. It said something about Jo, that despite this huge, vast, lumbering creature, she still couldn't sort of saw the softer side of something. She was always kind of looking out, actually, much like Katy Manning, kind of always looking out for that, the good, the warmth, the friendliness, I think.
Well, you know, it was something that, you know, the character sort of had, because of the way she came in and the way she went out, and you saw her grow up, you saw her evolve into somebody who was ready to stand on her own 2 feet and fight for this planet. You know, it was a great character, and she even kind of liked the Master, and the Master kind of liked her.
Absolutely. You know, without doubt, they had a real soft spot for each other. I think where the Doctor and the Master had a respect for each other, I think Jo and the Master kind of had a little bit of a twinkle in the eye for each other. I think it was a lovely touch.
Well, I think from the moment that she actually, you know, he hypnotized her, and from there on, he realized, you know, because you don't have to be, you know, go to university and do all these things, or come, you know, be a brilliant mind. You know, Jo was a great character to come in and learn, and she was brave, and she was feisty, and she was sort of funny. So once he'd hypnotized her, I think he appreciated the fact that this little, what he thought would be a pushover, he never got her again.
Not at all. He kind of, I think, he probably enjoyed the fact that he maybe not got the measure of her. He was surprised by her. I think he enjoyed that.
Yeah. Well, I guess it also comes to the same thing too, that when she offered her life for the doctors to Azal,
yes,
it was, once again, it's that thing of love that can't be, you know, they can't actually work with that. They don't know how to work with that. And I think the Master kind of saw that there was this sort of, he couldn't really penetrate that kind of girl. That didn't sound right.
That really, honestly, I was trying to keep a straight face, but that was never going to last.
I was trying
to... Hey ho. Hey everyone at home, I hope you're still watching.
I'm sorry my brain is still a little bit addled from this horrible illness that I've had. And I was trying to piece all this together to make it sound, you know, really. And as soon as I got, this is not going well, Katy, shut up.